I'm live streaming right now on my own Twitter profile. This is also going on the Maths Tutors UK Facebook group and the Bitpaper Facebook page. So today I'm really, really excited, as I have been all of this time recently, due to the unfortunate circumstances, I should add as well, that quite a few of us had to move to online tutoring, online teaching, and I've been doing this for a long time, so it's my opportunity to share with the world how it's done. And today we have someone that's recently learned how to teach online very, very quickly, crash course in online teaching, which quite a lot of us had to do. We'll be discussing mostly how to teach early maths, dyscalculia, and I'm joined by Catherine, who will introduce herself.
Hi, my name's Catherine Eadle. I'm the owner and tutor of the Little Maths Room, and I'm also the founder of the Dyscalculia Network. And I'm a dyscalculia specialist tutor based in Oxfordshire, and I teach pupils not just with dyscalculia, but pupils who struggle with maths or just find it challenging, and pupils with additional needs especially. So I have children who are autistic, children with ADHD, children who are dyslexic, children who have global learning delay. So all the pupils I teach have got particular needs. I also teach a few adults as well who have found maths hard when they're younger and are coming back to relearn. Mostly I teach children who are between the ages of 7 and 15, 14, 15. I don't teach GCSE. I trained as a primary school specialist, so that's where I feel that I'm most useful. And I became a dyscalculia specialist in 2003 when I trained with Doreen Yeo at Emerson House in London. And since then, I've taught dyscalculic pupils in schools, and for the last 3 years with my own business.
Fantastic. And it's just, for me, it's just a great opportunity to meet someone who's taught dyscalculia for that long, actually, and worked with Dorian Yeo and at Jane Emerson House, because I was trained by Patricia Bapti, and then I just got into this early maths teaching deeper and deeper and deeper. And I keep telling people, but I was foolish slash brave slash whatever you want to call it, enough to think that I could teach dyscalculia completely online about 4 years ago. And I've hacked up some stuff and it works for me, and I've found like tutees all over the world. And one of the things is that if someone has dyscalculia and they can't find a local specialist, then online opens up that option. I mean, we're all stuck indoors now, so it's worked very well for me for years, but now that's available to everyone. So that's in some ways that's an opportunity for dyscalculia tutors and the tutees, because both are now open. Tutors are learning how to teach online. Tutees are learning how to learn online. So for me, this is this is a great opportunity. So I've only been teaching dyscalculia for about 5 years. The first year was in person, and the other 4 years I've just been hacking it up online. And so this is when I met Catherine. I wanted to it's almost the other way around. So like Catherine's done it almost all her life in person, and then the last 2 weeks probably online. So this is a great, it's a great mixing of minds. So just to start off with, how would you teach someone? What's the kind of hardware your tutees will have? With hardware, I mean both in terms of the computer they'll have, or pad, tablet, and presumably is manipulative. So like how does that all work, and how have you worked that out recently?
So with my pupils, they usually come to my house. I have a specifically built classroom. I'm wondering now whether I should have built that classroom with the current situation, but I have my own classroom, and the pupils come to me. And they all have a bag with manipulatives. So by that, I mean things like Dean's blocks and place value dice, which we use a lot of in all of our work, and also cues and air rods, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. So all of those type of resources my pupils have with them already, which has obviously changed things slightly. I'm also obsessed with games, which you'll find out because virtually the whole way I teach is through game. So I've had to adapt things to suit. And fortunately, lots of things like making fraction cards, for example, it's really easy to send parents in advance of a lesson a file with something and ask them to print it out. And I'm very fortunate position that all of the parents have the option to print at home. Currently, there's no problems at the moment. So the parents are able to print resources if that's required for our lessons. So I've had to adapt the way I teach a massive amount, because I'm used to sitting next to a child. I'm used to reading the child's facial expression a lot. And because my children all have difficulties with learning in some way, I'm used to tailoring my tuition very, very carefully, and it's very structured and very hands-on. So with online, what I've tried to do is to keep it as simple as possible, because that's for my benefit, to be honest.
Right.
This is all very new. And Atul, very kindly, we'd actually already booked in some training together, bizarrely, because I'd had a pupil ask about online, and Atul will tell you I was very, very reluctant. And I'd been putting off the training with him and going, yeah, I'll do that next week. And then suddenly I was like, okay, I really should do this. And Atul very kindly gave me some time and talked to me about it. And I think his biggest piece of advice is the one that I would say to anybody who's literally starting out this week, is just keep it really simple and as close to how you normally teach, because that's really reassuring to your pupils. I've tried to keep my same manner. I've tried to keep the same structure to my lessons as I normally use. And the only thing that I've done differently, I have an Acer touchscreen laptop. I haven't been using the touchscreen. Atul did give me the sensible piece of advice was to get a drawing tablet, which I have got. Bear in mind, I'm a week into using that, because as it just so happened, I was on holiday last week. I was in Portugal. Right. Thrilled about that. So I've only just literally got used to the tablet. So you can see if I write here, I can't write. That would help if I picked up a pen, wouldn't it? Here we go. That my writing is still pretty much at toddler level. You see, I haven't really got the hang of this yet. But the children are really adaptable, and they have got the hang of it really quickly. My pupils mostly are using a laptop. Some are with Mac, some are PCs. Only one of my pupils has a parent who is used to working online and therefore has every technology and is writing on a pad, has me on one screen, him on another screen with the Bitpaper.
That's pretty good.
So that pupil is obviously a huge advantage.
Yeah.
But my other pupils, children are so adaptable compared to adults. There's me feeling like a bit like a swan. I'm sitting here smiling, and underneath the table I'm like, is this going to work? Is it all going to go well? Is the child going to understand? And the children are just literally like, oh, do you do this, Kat? Oh, okay. And off they go. And they don't hesitate. They don't hold back. They're so confident with technology that, in fact, even my youngest pupils, who are maybe 7 or 8, I do ask the parents to stay in the room. And I think that's a really useful tip with younger children. I ask the parent not to interfere with my lesson, but to almost be the child's assistant. So if I want the child to get a particular resource, the parent can just make sure the child's got the right resource. And if the child starts to spin around on the chair or do something that it's difficult for me to control, then the parent is there to just say, oh, look at Kat, as well as me saying it. And I found that really helpful as well.
Yeah, just to the point I made, when we had our session first, was that the children will be very comfortable with the technology, and in fact you will probably learn from them actually how to tutor online.
Oh, yeah.
For me this journey started in 2012, and it was I had a tutee who was ill actually. They had a spinal cord fever, and so had missed a whole term of school, and it simply wasn't practical to go to their place because they lived very far away, and so they arranged a session during the summer holidays, 1 hour a day, and I thought, let's try this online thing out. And back then there was no whiteboards, there was no there was no Zoom, so I just did my iPhone and my Skype thing, and we wrote on bits of paper, and I would very, very quickly I realized that actually what was really important was if I get them to articulate what their thought process was. And because you have a thought in your head and you think you have a thought, but until you articulate it, you don't realize what it is, and it may well be different to what you thought you had. And that process, that self-explanation process, is absolutely vital to the student, and even more so to the tutor, because you can then get a real window into their thought process that you can't get online in person sometimes, because you're sitting right in front of them and you can see everything, so it'll be kind of awkward to get them to articulate something you can see already. Or it's so there's, and also because they're sitting so far away from you, it's there's a whole bunch of like social pressure protocols that you don't realize are there until you remove it. Actually, you switch it off by being in one person and them being in one person, and so you get this significantly increased articulation from them and the quality of articulation. And I just ran with that, and that tutee in 2012, in the summer of 2012, trained me to be an online tutor. But I had the opportunity to do it like very, very slowly, but you've just been thrown straight into it. But I keep saying this, but it's the tutor, not the tech. You can actually teach with pretty much like with the very simplest hardware, with your smartphone. If you really want, you can run Zoom on your smartphone, and that's enough, because and in this initial stage of going online, your tutee already, like most of you will be going online with tutees you knew in person, so they already know you, they know your style, they're familiar with you. So just be the very best you always are with them, and try not to make it too different. Just like somehow get through to them on video, and just assume they'll learn the technology faster than you will, and they'll know it, they'll be completely at ease. Technology is going to be messy sometimes. There's going to be a few glitches. Let's have a plan B. Keep it very, very simple, and let's add the moving parts very slowly. And it's great that they have the manipulatives already. You have the manipulatives, so you can like get them to articulate. You can stick it up there on Zoom. Maybe you can. I'll show you that later as well, where you switch the cameras around. But that's all advanced setup. I didn't do that in the beginning. I just got the Cuisinart box has its own tray. I've got a little another tray, like a red one here. So sometimes I just move things there, lift it up. You can be very, very creative. Like I also
have a tray, a little bit more floral.
Fantastic. So that's the hardware, including the manipulatives. And as for, we are using Bitpaper, just to be clear that we're using this Bitpaper online whiteboard to do this whole live stream on. But yeah, there's other options available. What have you been using, and what's worked for your students?
Well, because I already had this training with Atul, he taught me about Zoom. I'd never used Zoom. I knew nothing about Zoom. So I started off with using a Zoom call, and with my first couple of lessons, the children had their book. We used Zoom. I would show things, hold up things, and the child would write in their book. But a lot of my children, writing takes a lot of processing power from the child. And so quite frequently I write the questions, and the pupils then only have to focus on telling me their thinking, and then we write it down together. And I felt it was really important to keep that. So I really quickly introduced Bitpaper. And I teach quite a lot of students per week, about 25 students per week. And at least 22 of those students have been able to load Zoom and Bitpaper onto their devices. I've got a couple of pupils who are working on iPads, where we have used Zoom with Zoom Whiteboard instead. My preference would be Bitpaper from what I've learned so far. And I'm aware that Bitpaper is going to have a cost soon. And to be honest, I feel that as a full-time tutor, this is my full-time income. It supports my whole family. That paying a little bit to have some pages for my pupils over this period is fair enough. It's another business, we all have to support each other's businesses at this time. And I find Bitpaper really, really easy to use. The children love it. And I've been able to keep the structure of my lessons by using that. So in other words, for example, if I wanted to play a game with the pupil, I can just as easily play a game on this screen as I can on another screen. So I can easily split the page into, you'll have to excuse my lines that are less than straight. You can see I haven't quite got the hang of this yet, can't you?
I'll correct them for you. I do this for my teachers all the time.
We'll let Atul do the correcting here.
Done.
So I can easily write here cat at the top of this side. I can write Atul at the top of this side. And if I could actually and we can easily play a game, for example. And a lot of my teaching is through games, and I'm finding that the children are just as engaged with playing a game in this format as they are in their book. And I think that's really important to keep that consistency going. So when we've learnt a concept, say we're, I don't know, adding multiples of 10, let's just say. So we have our dice, the tens dice. The child also has their tens dice. We throw the dice. So have you got a tens dice there, Atul? I should have
Yeah,
asked.
I can be the child for you.
He can be the child, he has one. So I've done 80 plus 30. I can record this. I can ask Atul to throw his dice too. And here we have to use trust, very important.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I sometimes do that with just two teasers to show that I'm gonna be okay with it. So
Yeah, yeah. Be
so
fair. What did you get? I can't see actually. I can't see what your top number is.
I
I
got
don't.
one.
So he's going to get 10 because it's a tens dice we're using. And again, please throw it again. There we go. See, he can show. There we go.
0.
0. So we'll make that 100 because all the children much prefer 0 to be 100 than 0.
Why not?
And then, for example, if we were using this for our skill, then I would get the child, when I've written those two sums, the children are really amazing with a mouse. Even if they've only got a mouse pad, they actually write neater than me. And they will quickly do their sum here that they got 110 and they want to write it. This is the thing I found. I'm like, oh, shall I write it for you? Now, if we were one-to-one, they'd be like, yes, Kat, you write it for me. But because we're online and it's all exciting and they've got a mouse, they're like, no, I can write my answer.
Yeah.
And then usually I'd also get them to work out mine as well. So we talk about 80 plus 20 makes 100 and so on. So we'd actually find out that we both had the same answer. And our normal thing is that I circle the winner, usually with another colour. So we can bring up our other colours here.
Right, so I'm going to do that on my end as well. So yeah, there's a colour palette for Bitpaper.
So I've picked a red pen by using the colour palette at the bottom. And the children have absolutely loved. We've actually got a draw here because we've both got the same answer. But the children have loved doing that aspect as well. And because maths is so important, comparison with children with dyscalculia, games are a really good way of constantly comparing numbers. So I found that I can do this just as well here as I can in a book. It works really, really well.
Yeah.
And it encourages them to be engaged in it. And I think because the child is engaged in the writing as well, I think that's really good for memory as well, is to encourage the child to write a little bit.
Yeah.
And
get the motor movement, yeah. And just to for the viewers, I forgot to explain the interactivity of Bitpaper. Right now, if you haven't ever heard of Bitpaper, this is what's called an online digital whiteboard. It's interactive paper, so like both Kat and me can write on it right at the moment. So we saw that with the writing name. One of the first things I do is actually just play noughts and crosses. So if I do that, and Kat can do Kat's already been writing, but yeah, so we can both actually interact on this, and you already saw me straighten that line out, so we can both, it's a collaborative space. So in person you cannot collaborate on the same piece of paper because your bodies would get in the way, or like you have to be sitting on one side or the side by side or that side. But here you get this effectively infinite canvas with 180 colors and grids. And it's surreal, actually. It's unreal. It's really, really good. Yeah, I'll just get rid of that noughts and crosses. Excellent. So yeah, that's hardware and software. So yeah, we'll try and bring this, keep it quite a short, snappy live stream. I know it's late for both of us. Both of us have tutor a lot, and I'm very grateful to you, Catherine, that you agreed to this. Because it is for the greater good of the community. I know there's lots and lots of, so when this started to happen, I had the time to train you, but I've had so many requests from people that I can't, it's not efficient for me to use I'm teaching and I'm helping with Bitpaper, so this is for me, is the best, most efficient use of my time, so that I can call people like yourself who have. So look, I've only been teaching Dyscalculia a little while, but you've spent a long time doing it. So I'm learning from you. This is a fantastic opportunity for me. I'm going to be interviewing Mark McCourt on Thursday, and I'm excited. I'm a big fan. I'm a fanboy actually. So I'm a fan of all these people, and this is like my golden opportunity to get to know you and show how you teach, learn from me. And this is an opportunity to bring some of the biggest names in teaching in person and online. This is my world. I've been doing this for years, so this is great. So just kind of to finish off, what would you say are top tips for anyone who's had to to switch online, like what can they do to make it this transition as smooth as possible, or maybe they're at the point where they've just like quit. I know loads of tutors who've just quit. Basically, they tutored in person. They've lost all their students because of this. A lot of us tend to teach exam entry students, especially for secondary one, that's year 11, year 13, and they're all gone. Like the tutoring industry is driven by this kind of stuff. So yeah, what would you advise how to move them online? Yeah.
I think the first thing is that I'm very fortunate because my tutees, because of their difficulties, tend to be more long term. So it's not really usually. I have some children who are working towards, for example, common entrance exams. But generally, my pupils aren't working to exams. They're working to improve and make progress. And quite often that's progress that hasn't been able to be made in school. And they need that one-to-one help. So I have to say, and I said at the beginning, I was really quite apprehensive about moving online. And I'm sure lots of people feel that way too. And it has been a really steep learning curve for me. And at the end of the first week, I taught 20 students online in 1 week. In my first week, and my head was spinning, I have to say. The children would have never known, but I was exhausted, physically and mentally exhausted, because it's like learning something all over again. Even if you follow what you normally do, you've got to do it in a little bit of a different way. So I would just go for it, just try it, try it with one pupil, try it with a family member, a brother or sister's child or whatever, just to gain a bit of confidence, because once you're started, it's actually fine. And I can already see a couple of my pupils, and I'm not going to say all of them because I do teach children with difficulties, and some of them are finding this transition hard because they rely a lot on face cues. And with me not next to them, they're struggling to have me small on their screen and to concentrate on what I'm doing without being able to look at my face as much. And I can feel that's a little bit of an issue. But generally, quite a lot of my pupils, I think they'll be reluctant to come back to face-to-face. I think my problem will be come September, October, I'll be like, come back to my lovely classroom that I built. And they'll be like, no, let's stay online. It's so much easier. We love this. So I think I'm going to end up with some online tutors. As far as teaching is concerned, and I talked to Atul about this last week, my poor voice. I thought my voice was fairly robust from years of teaching in classrooms and then from teaching one-to-one for the last 3 years. But I think you have to project your voice in a different way. And Atul gave me some great tips about keeping your head back. And I can find myself doing it. You start leaning your head forward because you're leaning into the screen, and that's really bad for your throat. And I've had a sore throat now for the entire 3 weeks since I started, including the week when I wasn't teaching. So I'm really trying to keep my head back. And also he recommended some straw exercises, which are ridiculous, I'll tell you now. But I found those really helpful. So I've had my straw. I'm sure Atul can put a link somewhere. But you do some silly sounds through the straw and it helps to open your vocal cords.
Yeah, that's thanks to Alex. We should credit him. Actually, he's
I didn't know his name,
he's an opera
sorry.
singer, and I'm actually, my other thing is singing and singing as well. Actually, so I'm used to these sort of vocal health things. I've never had to do the straw exercise. But what happens is, after a while, a lot of people are finding this online transition extremely difficult because of various reasons. But what happens is after about a month or so, you'll start to relax into it. Like all the moving parts will make sense, and you'll find a good chair. You'll use your posture correct. You'll be a bit more relaxed that way. You can eventually get a mic like this, an external mic. So I speak very softly, but it projects my voice in a very clear way. So I don't need to be quite loud.
I think I need one of those.
It's just upgrades you can make, or you can get your Apple AirPods or like a little headset. But so after a while you add more moving parts, and it becomes easier and easier and easier. And we were having this chat earlier, and I find I can do more hours online because of it. I find it actually in some ways quite relaxed. Actually, the whole thing is very relaxed. But and as for your tutees and judging their like facial cues, etc., what you'll also find is that our brains are amazing. Like, are we as human beings? So you'll start to tune into their faces online as well. And I've done it for so long that I can actually sense maths anxiety really accurately, actually. And I know when to like move forward and move back, because I teach Dyscalculia as well, and I get I was teaching a child who for the first time, and they had so much dyscalculia. They had like so much maths anxiety, I must say, that they turned up with 4 stuffed animals and their mum by the side, and so I knew this, and they're not. I don't get any verbal information out of them, so. And I know this, and I can sense it, and so for me, then I don't do the thing that scared them all their life, which is like a bunch of number work, symbolic work, numerals. We just kind of play around with geometry, or so we kind of like do other games with dice or something, and then very slowly calibrate to the student, and you become really good at reading that online. And you know what? When you get good at reading that with this kind of low resolution, tiny image, you become much better at it in real life. You'll pick it up instantly, like in the the high resolution or real world. We haven't met, right? We haven't met in high resolution yet. We have never met in person.
In the real world, that would be cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we must do some dyscalculia training together or something. That would be very cool. So I think that my sort of overall tips is if you don't know the pupil, it's going to take a little bit longer, I think, because I know all my pupils really well. I am really tuned into what they want, and I am a big planner. And because I have so many students and they're all at completely different levels, everything I plan is individualized to how that child learns. And I've had to adapt things. I mean, I think that's the first week was the hardest week, because I had to adapt my plans that I'd made for doing one-to-one to work online. But since I've done that, little things, I'm just going to move this down to another page. I hope it's a blank one.
It's fine. Yeah. You can show my questionnaires if you want to. Yeah.
So I was just going to go actually down to this one here. Let me just get rid of that line. It is little things that have made it really easy for me that you might find easy. Is I'm just uploading, and I can't show you what I'm doing here, but I think Atul can.
Yeah, I've seen it now.
You can upload little things that make your life easier. For example, I don't want to be drawing a 10 frame every 5 minutes. I was doing some work with the pupil today on adding decimals. So she's just beginning decimals. She's 9. I've already taught her for about 80 lessons. She's dyscalculic, but she's made really good progress on number bonds and working. And we've just started looking at how number bonds apply in decimals. So we've been doing something like 0.4. Oh, I don't know what is wrong with my writing today. I have lost all ability.
I can be a scribe if you want me to.
You can tell that I've got tired today, can't you? So 0.4 plus 0.4. And she loved this because she could pick her colours, because children love colours. So she would colour in 0.4, and then she'd change her colour, which I think Atul showed on another video how to do this. So I won't soon. But and then I changed changed another colour into another 4, and then she was easily able to see that was then 0.8. And we also talked about that being 8 out of 10 in the fraction format. Now you can see my writing isn't great, but the children can read it, and their writing is similar. So it almost levels us in that sense.
Right.
And just bringing up little things like this, like a tens box or Dean's blocks, I found really useful. But Atul is going to show us something that I wanted to know about, so I've been asking him about it, which is the use of Cuisenaire rods. If you're familiar with Cuisenaire rods, I have some real ones here. I'll just pick out a couple. They are manipulatives that go from 10, 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and so on, all the way down to 1, just as the picture on the screen is. They're brilliant for children with dyscalculia or other learning needs, because they're hands-on, they're multisensory. And I was going to ask Atul how to create these online, because, as I said, I was walking before I ran. So I was just like, let's do everything simple to start with. But now I'd like to learn a little bit more about how I can use these on the screen. If you could explain, that would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. I love like my most favorite manipulative of all, like Joris. These basically you can just copy these literally onto your Bitpaper. You can like select all of them, make a copy, or I can duplicate this paper and you have them. But you can make them using Bitpaper has a bunch of tools called the shape tools. So if I click on there and click on draw fill shape, rectangle, these are all rectangles. So this is the orange rectangle, so I'm going to change it to orange. I just color matched it with the actual set I have, but and I'm just constructing an orange rod here from scratch. I put a 40 by 40 grid, and this is 10 units high, and there you go, you've got an orange rod. You can do the same with a circle tool. So I love two-sided counters as well. So yeah, so here's you can't see the other side, but you can just have that. You can do that. So then you can move these things around.
Really good nice pattern work.
Yeah, you can move that. So you got, and the children really love to move it around. You just hit the select tool, and you can change the orientation. You can make a copy of this. Actually, these are all layered. Let me just layer them up live here.
How do you make them layered like that? Do you just copy and paste the whole thing, but then can you pick them up individually still?
Yeah, so that's what I've just done now. Actually, I've just layered everything up, and I just copy pasted it once and then just repeated the whole thing again a few times. Credit due to Catherine Rook, who I collaborate with. She actually came up with this layered idea. So you can move them. You can, if you hit shift, if you select the thing, hit shift and rotate it. You can rotate it in 45-degree increments, so you can then lay it down.
It won't let me pick it up as well.
Yeah, I'll do this one of them. So I'll take this yellow rod here. I'm hitting shift on my keyboard, top right icon, 45 degrees, lying down.
Yeah, that's really helpful, I think, for children to actually be able to move it. Now, as it so happens, all my pupils who need rods have got them with them currently, but I'm thinking ahead. My pupil changeover time is usually over the summer. Because I don't teach for exams, I haven't got that May-June changeover time. My changeover time tends to be more between July and August. So when they get to be 13, 14, 15, and I feel like I've got them up to a level that they can cope with what they need to do from then on, then they move on to somebody else, a different tutor. And I take my little ones who are on my waiting list. And I'm very aware that come June, July, if we're still in this situation of online tutoring, which I suspect we may be, that I'm going to need to be very proficient by then of using these tools online, both to assess children and to introduce rods to them. And like Atul said to me earlier, it's easy to pop in a post something, send it via Amazon to their house. So I will actually have real life as well, because for me, I feel like the child having the manipulative is a really important first step before you move to the visual picture. The concrete pictorial abstract idea I'm very keen on. So I feel the child would need that hands-on equipment as well. And I would certainly encourage that at the beginning. And therefore having a second camera, I think, is something I would look into as well in the future, or using a phone, like you say, said in your last video.
Yeah, brilliant. We're on the Maths Tutors group, which is it's a group for tutors, it's a closed group. So we're having a few comments going on there. Do you keep a page? I'm so loving it. I really want to know more about it. Thank you again for your support and advice. So there's a bunch of comments coming in live, which is really great to see. It's a closed group, so I won't mention anyone's names. On Twitter is an open source one, so I can do that, but nothing on Twitter yet. But hey, so this recording will be there. We've covered quite a few things. I can go more into depth actually how I use virtual quiz and errors. In fact, I'm thinking of doing a separate session with Catherine Rook. So we've done a bunch of games already. We put them on YouTube. At the time, not many people seem to be interested in it, but they probably will be now. The other site I use for manipulative is mathspot.com, run by Johnny Hall. Absolutely fantastic thing. You can do that actually on Zoom, screen share and remote control, but I'll get into that in the next session. But yeah, just wrapping up the session now. It's a bit late for all of us. Thanks very much for your time, Catherine, on this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for yours.
And yeah, trust me, when you have the turnover, when you have to start with fresh students that you'd never met, it's going to get easier. I do that all the time. Like I have yesterday's tutees were like in Singapore, California, New Jersey, dyscalculics, and initially they don't have these rods, so I just do this when I'm doing with them, and then at some point they'll get the rods very slowly. So it's anything you can think of for dyscalculia tutoring online, or not anything, but quite a lot of things is possible online. So just have faith in that it'll work out. In fact, as a big metaphor, like just being positive about this whole thing. I know it is a very serious situation, and people are losing lives, and we should not like underplay that in any way. But but a lot more is possible online than you could possibly think of, and we just invent, we innovate, and when we come out of this, and we will come out of this obviously one day, we'll come out of it better and more learned as a society of online learners, online remote teaching, etc. Yeah,
And I
so
think
so
it's
it's
really
all
important at the moment to give your students some familiarity as well, which is why I've also tried to keep things as normal as possible. Because I think the students, we're very aware as adults how much this is affecting us, and mentally, I'm finding myself much more tired than normal from what I'm doing. Not only because it's new, but also because it's an effort, isn't it, when there's so much going on around us. But children also have been impacted by this quite a lot. And a lot of my children are really relieved to see me, and because they're not seeing their teachers at school in the same way. And we're adults who support children. When you teach a child one-to-one, I have really strong relationships with the families I work with, maybe more so than most. And a lot of the children and parents, I think, have been really to see me on online. And I think if we can give that support, we should at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. My vision is this is just like we do this between teachers, like we're doing. We do it in a group. We've got the live stream with Mark McCourt on Thursday. Like this video can bring us together more than we think it can, and it's so important to have that sense of constant. Like it's still the same teacher. It's still the same slot. My slot times are, well, I've been teaching online all the time, so it's actually very very constant for me. But it's still but still they're not going at school, so I've said actually let's keep the same after school slots, because at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday you used to see me, and like everything may have changed around you, but at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday you still see me in the same way on the screen, and we still do the same thing. So that's, I even tell them like, this is I have this constant in my life and you have this constant in your life, and the parents are quite grateful about it. Yeah, let's
Anyway,
just roll on with it.
thank you very much.
Yeah, wrap it up. Look forward to whenever we do another one. Yeah, all the best. All right,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.